Hi, in this video I'll show how I made sourdough starter at home from water and flour. It is important to choose the right flour when you make sourdough starter because your starter will collect the yeast from the flour. So you will need unbleached white flour and rye flour. And if you can't, it's best to use organic flour for this process. It is super easy and it takes probably less than 5 minutes a day, but it did take me 8 days to make the starter active. On day 1, you'll need 30 grams of water. I would recommend to use warm water, but nothing hotter than 85 degrees in Fahrenheit. 10 grams of white flour and 10 grams of rye flour. Simply mix it together. I'm covering mine with the plastic wrap, but make sure the air is coming in because the starter needs to breathe. And I will be labeling my starter just to keep track on what day I am. That's it for day 1. The next feed you'll do in 24 hours, so basically the next day. This is what I got the next day, just a few bubbles, nothing major is happening. So let's move on to day 2. On day 2, you'll need 20 grams of water. Mix your starter from day 1 before adding and add 20 grams. Add 10 grams of white flour and 10 grams of rye flour. Mix it well, make sure it's one even batter. Again, I'm covering it with the plastic wrap and I'll do another feed on day 3 in 24 hours. This is what I got in 24 hours. You can see there are a lot more bubbles this time and the starter is starting to ferment. On day 3, we're doing 30 grams of water, 10 grams of rye flour, and 20 grams of white flour. Mix the starter first and add 30 grams. Mix the starter. This time I'll be adding a mark to see if there's any growth happening. And this is what we got in 24 hours. You can see there are bubbles, there is increase in volume, and there are some more bubbles on the surface. On day 4, I'll add 30 grams of water, 20 grams of white flour, 10 grams of rye flour, and 30 grams of the starter. Again, I'm putting a mark to see if there is any growth. On day 5 and 6, repeat the same steps. And this is what I got on day 5. And on day 6, I did get a bigger jar just in case the volume would increase and I didn't want it to spill. And on day 7, I will increase the volume of the starter by doing 50 grams of the starter, 50 grams of flour, and 50 grams of water. I'm doing this because I want to have 300 grams of sourdough starter at the end. And this is what I got on day 7. You can see the starter doubled in size. And from now, I will do my regular routine. When I bake bread, I need 300 grams of starter total. So we're going to do 100 grams of the old starter, 100 grams of flour, and 100 grams of water. And this is what I got on day 8, 24 hours later, and we'll test the starter to see if it's ready to be used. So this is a very simple test. You put some starter in water. If it floats, it's ready. If it sinks, it's not ready. So you can see my starter floats. I want to show what I do with my starter. I have a total of 300 grams. So I'll get 100 grams of the starter. I will mix it with 100 grams of water and 100 grams of flour. And I will store it in the refrigerator. And you can keep it there for a week or a week and a half, and then you have to do another feed. Or you can store it in room temperature and then you have to feed it every 24 hours. When it triples in size, then you know it's ready to be used. Or you can also do the test with water to see if it floats, then it's ready. I store mine in refrigerator and I take it out a day before when I'm ready to bake the bread. And for the bread, I use 160 grams of the starter, and the other 40 is left on the spoon and on the jar. I will leave a link below on how I bake the bread with the starter, but I just want to say don't worry if it doesn't work from the first time, because with time your starter is going to get stronger and soon you'll have fresh, perfect homemade bread. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that this video was helpful.